And then
we're live.
Just about. Waiting for Facebook to see. Oh, you know what? It would help if I actually streamed it to the Facebook group. We are live on YouTube, though. Okay. Let me go back to the Facebook tab. And I believe we are now live. Okay.
Yee-hoo. We are live, and I am excited. We are in for a treat. At least I think so. But for all of our listeners, welcome to All About That Dose. This is a podcast on microdosing. We have a program launching for microdosing moms. The next cohort starts July 15th. So we are in that phase right now where if you are curious about what we're doing in this space, if you're resonating with Amanda and who she is, you're connecting with her and want to reach out and learn more about this mentorship, we are taking applications right now. And it's really just a casual conversation to see if it's a good fit. Not a high pressure thing. It's really just kind of guiding you on your journey. And I have to unlock this door. Give me 2 seconds.
Gotta love just flying by the seat of our pants here.
Oh yeah. So yeah, today, we're gonna talk about Amanda and who she is and learn more about who she is and who's guiding this experience in this microdosing moms experience. And so without further ado, I wanted to open this up with just a fun exercise for all of our listeners. And hopefully you stay to the end to find out the answer to this question I'm asking Amanda. So to start it off, Amanda, tell us 3 things about Amanda. So it'll be 2 truths. So 2 things that are true about you, and then 1 thing that is not true about you. And then at the end of the podcast, you're going to share which out of the 3 was not true. So I'm curious to hear your 3.
Oh my gosh, this is giving me flashbacks to old team meetings at the university. This was a very common thing to go around the table and do. And I always would feel so nervous when it was my turn because, yeah, just lots of reasons. I'm sure people can relate when the spotlight's on you and you're like, I want to be interesting, but what do I say? Okay, so let me think. 2 truths and a lie. Okay. Number 1. My original hair color is brown. Number 2. I have recorded a professional album, or I should say recorded an album in a professional studio. And number 3, I spend part of every year traveling around the Southwest in a camper with my 3 kids, husband, and one of our 2 dogs.
I was trying to watch your eyes so the people on the podcast that aren't watching, they can't look and see, don't they say, like, depending on where you look, the person's telling the truth or something?
Yeah, there's apparently some whole psychology around that, but I don't know those details.
All right, y'all. So I'm curious for the listeners, if you're on this live or even replay, you want to type in, if you're on Facebook, which do you think was not true that Amanda said out of the 3 things that she said? I'm curious what you think she was fibbing about. All right. I don't know. That's tough. That's tough for me too.
I know you don't know.
I'm like, does she have red hair? Oh. And the other 2 things you said, and you kind of like, you didn't say it, like you went back and like you clarified some things, and that made it seem like it was more true. And so
maybe I'm just a really good liar.
All right. Well, let's get into it and let's find out.
I love it.
Find out who Amanda is. So that's really what this podcast is about. A lot of questions asking Amanda who she is. And yes, I, along with everyone else, we want to know, who are you, Amanda?
Whew. Opening with a sledgehammer. Yes, bring it in the big guns. All the metaphors. Gosh, I love this question. I really do. And for the longest time, I hated this question. Absolutely. Man, would it activate my system? This idea, this question, who are you? Because certainly I wear a lot of hats, right? I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I am a sister, a daughter. I am a business owner. For a long time, part of that answer for me was I'm an educator. I'm a woman. But none of that really speaks to this deeper truth, the real answer to the question, which is far more spiritual than anything else. Who are you? Who am I? A real quick story about this very question, actually, and why it just has so much energy and gravity around it for me. I remember when I was 10 years old, it was my 10th birthday, and I was hiking around in the woods alone near my house. So I wasn't in the middle of nowhere. I was hiking around in the woods alone, and I was feeling really, I was like in full existential crisis. I didn't know what that was then, but I knew, like, the question running through my mind was, who am I? What am I doing here? What is my purpose? I just didn't have this connection with this core identity. And it felt like everyone else did, and I didn't. And I was running around in the woods on my birthday. I'd always go to these woods at the time of my birth every year. And I was running around in the woods, and I came upon this tree. The tree had been stripped of its bark and was kind of in its own little clearing area. It was on a hill. And in the bark were inscribed the words in all capital letters, who am I? No punctuation, just those 3 words that I had stumbled into after asking myself that same question on my hike. So I don't know what the odds are of that happening, but that has created this lifelong pursuit of answering that very question. So it's so interesting that you open this little interview that we're doing with that question, because it has truly been an anchor point in my life and determining the routes that I take to connect with exactly that answer. So who am I? I feel like I know a little better now than I did. I've definitely connected with a very authentic space, and it's bigger than that. I am part of a collective, and that feels really good to experience.
Yeah, I love that story. How old were you when you stumbled upon those words?
10. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice. So, can you tell us just a little more about yourself, what you do, this amazing new thing that you launched, what you do in the microdosing space, just a little about that.
Yeah. So, well, I launched the Microdosing Moms Facebook group. It was over a year ago. And it was after I had started microdosing and I felt tremendous relief from it. It was night and day. I had been off of all pharmaceutical medications for over a year at that point. And when I went into microdosing, it created these huge shifts. Now, I had been practicing these metaconscious healing practices that I was in the process of developing. I'd been practicing all of that. And then when I brought microdosing in, it lifted everything up and it gave it new awareness, new insight, new levels of authentic self experience. And so as soon as that happened, I felt this inner, something snapped into place, this inner alignment. And I knew in my soul, in my heart, I knew that this would help other people that were in a similar place to me, who maybe wanted to try a more holistic approach to healing or a spiritual growth, even wanting to create this container for women to come together and share in their journeys, and particularly to have a safe place. So really what I'm doing in the space is creating a safe space for women, for moms to come together and share, learn, grow. I spend a lot of time, I'm teaching in our mentorship, I'm teaching these metaconscious healing concepts that are supporting coming to this healing and growth from a more existential, from a truly holistic, when we're talking about our energy overall, a truly holistic perspective, to be able to heal in those deeper ways, to be able to touch those parts of us that those of us who've spent any amount of time in therapy or self-help or any of those cognitively focused arenas. You realize at some point, some of us, I did, that it was taking me far, but it wasn't getting me all the way there. There was something else, there was something missing. And so with the metaconscious healing, bringing that into this microdosing moms space, it allows for this, it allows people to, or has allowed me, and I'm supporting others now in reaching these deeper aha moments, these richer epiphanies about our unconscious patterns. And so that's really what I've been.
Yeah. Is that something that like you learned? So like, I'm curious, how long have you been working with the medicine and, these practices? Is this, something that you developed? I'm curious, kind of like I know you've switched careers. And so I'm just kind of curious, like the career change and kind of what led to that. And then what you're teaching now, like, where does that come from? And, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gosh. So I worked in the education space for over a decade. I worked in first as a middle school special ed teacher in the focusing on behavior modification. And then from there, I went into higher education and I worked in the university space, and I was an instructor and a mentor there. Supporting in the the teacher credentialing program. But my focus, kind of my niche when I was doing that, was really on helping people overcome whatever challenges they were experiencing in their life that was making it difficult for them to access their education. The population that were attracted to this particular university were people that were a little bit older. I think the average age was 37. And these are people who had families. These are people who were in underserved areas that maybe just didn't have access to more traditional university experiences. These were people that were wanting to change their lives. Maybe they were the first generation to graduate. Anyway, there was a lot going on in their lives, which that was happening. And I made it my focus, even though the university didn't tell me to do this, but I made it my focus to zero in on that and support them with where they were and what they were struggling with. And that is really when these concepts started being born. At the time, I was going to a religious science church, or Science of Mind. If you're curious about that, Ernest Holmes wrote a big bunch around it, wrote the book, and it's amazing. Anyway, I had been doing that as well. And so I was incorporating a lot of these principles of, we are manifestations of energy. We are more powerful than we know. There's a universal consciousness, and just this idea that like we are very, very powerful. So I was incorporating that into my teaching, my mentoring at the university, and my metrics were amazing. I was consistently the top performer, and among my colleagues, among the other faculty. And so I was also supporting others in creating kind of a similar structure for support. So all through that, kind of the thread that's underlying all of that is this helping nature, and this idea that there's a deeper part of us that we can tap into to create change within us, which will then create changes or create different results outside of us. So when I first left the university, so I was called to leave in 2022. I had been using psychedelics therapeutically for less than a year at that point, but I was very called to shift out of educator, which was hard because that was part of my definition of who I was. I was an educator. I was a teacher. I was an instructor, and I was also a helper. And I wanted to focus on a more holistic picture with people and really help in these deep ways. And so in the last year when I was at the university, I was also doing my coach credentialing, getting credentialed in energy consciousness, which is a huge framework when it comes to working with psychedelics. And it was not intentional. Like, those two things are not typically paired together. They're very separate, very separate arenas. However, serendipitously, like, they came together in my journey, and that unlocked within me this whole paradigm, it opened the floodgates to create all of this healing stuff, all of this healing content, frameworks, paradigms, infrastructure for supporting growth, for supporting healing in these deeper, richer, more spiritually rooted avenues. And so I had done macro experiences, left the university, not microdosing yet, launching my business. And then shortly after that, I did start microdosing. And when I first launched my business, psychedelics was not part of the conversation. It was really just focused on helping people shift their energy, raise their consciousness through core energy coaching. And that was great. And it was amazing. And it still is. It still is amazing and great. And now I've really focused on bringing energy consciousness into the psychedelic space, into this conversation that we're having around what does it mean to heal? What does it really mean to heal? And in doing that, I found incredible healing in myself, and I've supported incredible healing in other people too, which is so inspiring and honoring, really.
And that's and you had, before I asked that last question, you were talking about meta consciousness healing, and I think a lot of the listeners may be surprised that this is yours, right? Am I correct? Like this is a term, or this is something you coined, or could you give a little more? And I know you talked briefly about it, but maybe an example of one of these meta consciousness healing practices. And also, just to confirm, could you also confirm or not confirm, this is something that you made up?
Yeah. Metaconscious healing is my my concept. I designed it. I'm creating it. It's still being fleshed out. However, there's a few pillars that are already established and created. It's born out of the energy consciousness framework, which is an established and highly effective paradigm out of the training that I did. And it also includes a lot of spiritual concepts. I know, just to give it a little bit of context, when I was really knee deep in my own healing, and I was wanting to heal myself. I was working through PTSD, depression, and anxiety, and I really wanted to get to these deeper layers. And part of my unwavering belief in those times is that I was pursuing this healing, not because I was broken. I was pursuing this healing because I believed in my core, in my heart of hearts, that I was whole. And so coming at it from this perspective, healing from a space of wholeness, changes the game. It changes the game. And it becomes about being able to zoom out and look at yourself from a very holistic perspective, to start to peel back these layers of inauthenticity, which are patterns that we've learned along the way, largely unconscious drivers, energy blocks within us that come up as the form of assumptions or interpretations or limiting beliefs. There's all sorts of things that are driving us. I like to think of our biological manifestation of this energy kind of like Chat GPT a little bit. So we have all these experiences, and they imprint themselves on us in some way. And then as we move throughout our lives, we respond to stimulus and triggers as they come in the most logical way, based on the system that this information's being put into. So, and that's not to say that we're not beings with free will. For sure, we are, absolutely. However, I beg you to consider the idea that we don't use free will nearly as much as we think we do or want to. Most of the time, we are on autopilot. Even when we're interacting with other people, we are on autopilot. And so becoming meta conscious in this healing paradigm is zooming out so you can see how you operate, how you are responding to your environment with these unconscious drivers. And that isn't to invalidate any of the patterns. It's not to feel bad about how, why you're operating the way you are. It's really to wonder at the brilliance of your being, that it has adapted so effortlessly, so automatically throughout your entire life, that of course you are responding in the exact way that you are right now. It makes perfect sense based on everything you've experienced, everything you believe, every interaction you've ever had, anything that is imprinting onto your consciousness, you carry with you. And being able to see all of it at once and see that you are whole. Connect with that space in you that is perfect, because we are perfect.
Yeah, if the listeners think about just all the times that you just say things, or you just respond, or you're just walking past your spouse and you're just like grumpy, and you're just like, hey, or but just my work with Amanda in the short time allowed me to see how I am running on autopilot, but she has the tools, and we have the tools with the medicine and the mentorship to give you another option, another option on how to respond. And if you can associate that with, I'm going to feel better, it's going to work. You have to believe, but these tools they're priceless, and you speak so much truth to running on autopilot. And I mean, I think about it daily. Just I'll say a certain word and it has no meaning, and I have to really pull myself back and be like, there's really no reason to even use that word. And so this is really, like you said, helping pull back the layers. I consider all those words unauthentic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pulling you away from your true self, and it's pulling you into patterns where maybe it causes an argument, or and so that's one thing I wanted to say. But one of the biggest things you said that I think is so refreshing is you seeing yourself, but also I see it in the way your people and your clients, you see them as already whole. And I just see a lot of people in this space, in the coaching industry, where they really, I don't know if pray is the right word, but like really pick and point and advertise to the fact that you're not whole, right? Something's wrong with you. You got to fix this. And we're coming from a totally different angle of you're already whole. And so for me, that just feels so refreshing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw something online today that said, it was something along the lines of, you don't need to be broken, or you don't need to feel like you're broken to practice healing. And that really resonated with me, because part of my, the whole paradigm of metaconscious healing and, the felt sense framework, all of that is this idea of creating a healing practice. And I think that, if I can come to this space knowing and believing that I'm whole, despite all of the ways that society and culture has told me that I'm broken over the years, if I can come to this space, come to my healing practice with that mindset in mind, I feel like it's possible for anybody to make that switch, to step into that belief that, like, I'm already whole and perfect. I'm here and I'm a perfect product of everything I've ever been through. And now I have an opportunity to look at everything I am a little bit more deeply, from a more conscious perspective, from a more observing perspective, and choose and decide if this aligns with what I want to create in my life. It becomes a more creation-based mindset. It's, what do I want to create? What do I want to shift? I have agency. I have control, and that is done by peeling back all these layers. You're peeling back these layers that cause your system to run on autopilot, right? And I think one of the critical things that microdosing does, it does a few pieces to us neurobiologically. One of the critical things is that it slows the blood flow to the amygdala, which is our danger sensing part of the brain. And so we are not as quick to react. And when we're not as quick to react, we can step into, we have a chance to step into this observer role and watch and learn about us, right? We're not watching and saying like, oh, come on, why am I doing that? I'm such an idiot. Like, no, we want to zoom out and even look at that. Like, I'm judging myself. Okay. Why am I judging myself? What expectations do I have? What attachments do I have around this particular scenario? Microdosing, I think, is a beautiful tool to support us in having a little bit of space in that moment. And at the same time, it's also quieting the self-referential parts of our brain, which support us in not ruminating as much. It kind of quiets our sense of ego down a little bit so we can get into that critical observer role and watch ourselves and suspend some judgment about what we're doing, and come to it with an openness, come to it with a curiosity. Like, I always felt like I was kind of putting together these pieces of the puzzle, learning how I am, who I am. And when a new realization would come up and I would have this fundamental, profound epiphany about the way I operate, or the way like my beliefs have impacted my relationships, like being able to like peel that back from the walls of my consciousness and look at it, the relief, the light that comes in is transformative, absolutely transformative. And you do that again and again and again and again until eventually you're like, I can relax. I feel calm. I feel like me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. So I feel like we really went deep with who you are now and what you got going on now. And so I'm going to switch gears, and not that wasn't very fun and extremely entertaining, but I would love to learn what you wanted to be as a kid and why. So kind of going back to your childhood. Yeah. What did you like? What did you, yeah, I guess that class that we took where you wrote down what you wanted to be when you grew up.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. Yeah, I still have one of those worksheets. I was very clear. I had a plan. In 6th grade, we wrote down our professional plans, and I was going to be an actress. And then I was going to be the president of the United States. And then to settle down, I was going to be a teacher.
Oh, nice. There you go.
That was my life plan when I was 12.
Dreams come true.
Yep. Well, I've done 2 out of the 3.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. So this is interesting for me to find out the answer to this question, but are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I am an introvert. Definitely introvert. However, I am an introvert that loves connecting deeply with people. I thrive on small group, like deep, real interaction. So I find that when I'm in groups of larger people or people I don't know well, it really drains my energy. And I need that alone time to recharge.
Nice. Kind of had that idea, but it seems like, you're blossoming as time goes on too. And so, with the videos but I see that. Yeah. Introvert, but yeah, the passion comes through when you connect with other moms, or, really just connect with this space and your authentic self. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. All right. So how do you think you are different than your old last year self?
Last year's self. Yeah. Let me think. Where were we last year?
Mentally, mindset, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I would say I'm more, I'm a little, I don't know, the word slower is coming to mind, but I don't mean that in like a bad way. Emotionally slower, maybe slower to react. I feel like I am gaining more and more um, control over how I experience my emotional ups and downs. I'm more accepting. I think I'm a lot more accepting of myself, less critical, and definitely more able to stay in a space of authentic energy, even when I am being observed. That was always a big challenge for me. If I knew that people were observing me or watching me, I would stop up, I would clam up, I would get the nervousness would completely block any chance of authentic self-expression. And it's been through the flute playing, doing that more publicly over the last couple years has supported me in getting comfortable with that authentic self-expression. So I think that's probably the biggest growth curve I've had in the last year, is in getting comfortable and feeling natural in a space of authentic self-expression as I've increased my visibility in the healing space.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So I'm going to say with technology, 100 years from now, when Amanda is on her deathbed and she's about to pass to the other realms where, I don't know, she'll be visiting us in the ceremonial space, wherever, the astral realm, whatever you believe after you pass away. But when that happens, I think about death when I think about this question, but how do you want to be remembered?
Mm-hmm.
I guess you don't necessarily have to die. It could be, now, how do you want people to remember you? But I just went to, 100 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah, that's a rich question. I think, there's a quote that says people don't remember what you did, they remember how you made them feel. And I think that if there's one thing I could impart on the collective in my wake, it would be this idea that you're already whole, that you don't need healing, and you can choose healing because it allows you to expand into this authentic space. It allows you to really connect with this universal richness that will change your life. So I think when I think about how I'd want to be remembered, I think it would be more about this idea of inherent wholeness, of perfection, energetic perfection, exactly as you are. Nothing needs to change.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So this next question, if you want to pass on it, I don't know if you have an answer to this, but
is that allowed?
I'm curious, what was the most significant turning point in your life with the mushrooms? I don't know. I'm sure there's many, but I didn't know if you had just one.
There are a few. The one that immediately came to mind, I've kind of mentioned this before, but I was on it was a microdose, and I was on a bike ride, and I was feeling some inner disharmony, and I was really leaning into this inner disharmony in order to create awareness around it. And I was leaning into it and observing my whole self as, sensation, emotions, thoughts, spiritual pings, as things were rippling to the surface of my consciousness. And which is something that I teach in the radical awareness paradigm framework. So I was doing this on my bike ride, and I had this instinct. My intuition said to get off my bike and go lay under this tree. And so I pulled off, as I came up to this big, beautiful tree, and I laid my bike down. I took my helmet off, and I took out. I always have this little carpet that I bring with me along with my flutes, and so I laid it out, and I rested back on it, and I laid down. And I just looked up at the tree, and I didn't know. I wasn't looking for anything in particular or any particular answer, but in that moment, I was able to connect with this deep, deep, so real part of our existence in this universe from an absolute space. I was able to feel the energy from the tree in a way, get a sense of something that I often meditate around is absolute nature, which is part of nature consciousness, this absolute quality of nature. And the fact that we are all, the fact that light and color, those are all, they are all, they are all in existence through perception alone. There's no absolute or objective quality. However, when we're talking about objects and physical matter, there is an absolute quality. So when you take perception out of the way that we interact with these things, we are just two objects in absolute darkness when you're taking perception out of it, right? Because without perception, there's no light, there's no color. It's just absolute darkness and texture. Even if you take texture out of it, because without perception, touch, that doesn't exist either. So connecting with another living thing like this tree, two of us in our absolute state, knowing that we're just spinning around on this rock in the universe in total darkness from an absolute objective standpoint, that is, just touching with that and connecting with that thing, knowing that the only way we can connect with one another is through the powers of perception. It grounded me. It grounded me so hard into this concept of absoluteness and starting to really think about how consciousness works, how it creates everything. And it was pretty ineffable, but I've spent some time trying to figure out exactly how to put it into words. But it was very profound, very deep meditation. And then after a time, I got up and got back on my bike and continued on my route. And I felt transformed.
That's really beautiful. Yeah, I got chills when you were thinking about, or talking about that. And I actually thought about this epiphany I had last night that, I mean, listeners, if you think about this, like, I don't know, it was an epiphany for me, or I don't know if that's the right word, but I was watching this video of this indigenous person that was basically living in the forest, and like it had a relationship with the tree. And your story just made me think of this. And it brought me to this idea that we are nature. Like, what else could we be? And I don't know, I feel like through the matrix and the programming and like the jobs, and it's like, yeah, you go to the grocery and you go to the concrete jungle. It really, I feel like it pulls us away from our most authentic self. And seeing that video, if our listeners can go back thousands and thousands of years. And I'm saying this for anybody that is maybe, questioning like the medicine. And like, I had a message from the trees that said, we are part of the mycelium network. Like, we are part of the mushroom. We're part of the network. We're part of trees. And so for anyone like wrestling with the idea that like, you know, this concept of, yeah, we're human, but I feel like I'm more mushroom and more animal, more forest. And so just seeing that and hearing your story, and just taking our listeners back to, you know, thousands of years ago, like we were living inside of the tree, you know, like this guy, like he's in the tree, like he's so connected to the tree, and he is nature. Like he's not, you know, a corporate, you know, worker at the job, you know, some building, or, you know, it's like you are the tree, you're the forest. And I think just giving that example of, you know, what were we doing thousands and thousands of years ago? Like we were in nature, we were nature, we were just so integrated with that. And the indigenous tell of a story, back when, you know, the world first started, they, you know, they tell these stories as their truths, so they're not like fables or made up stories. Like when they tell their stories, they're passed down from word of mouth, generation to generation. And they said that at one point they were, us humans, we were able to talk to the plants and the trees, and they were able to talk back to us, and we could clearly communicate. And then I won't get into the whole story, but then the tie was severed to where, you know, we thought we were better. And again, won't get into the whole story, but the communication was cut. And I just share that because, you know, even though that communication was severed, there is hope. And they said that there are people that still have this, you know, I forget the exact words, but like this DNA inside of them where they can communicate to the animals and they can communicate to the trees. And, you know, we're going through this energy right now as a collective to where a lot of people are starting to tap back into, you know, this idea that we're all connected, we're nature, and we can talk to trees and animals. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it is accessible, really. It's communicating energetically with other living things and even non-living, because everything is energy, and we can connect with that energy through the different frequencies of consciousness. And I think what I was able to do under that tree was isolate the nature consciousness and really dial into that. And so I think in those ancient days, that nature consciousness was far more pronounced and recognized and utilized, whereas now it's quiet. It's very quiet now when we think about our society. You know, nowadays, really, it's the cognitive consciousness is the most utilized, and it's the leading consciousness, which has led our society all sorts of cool places. However, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice when we're not looking at our existence and our experience from this holistic, energetic perspective and tapping into the other consciousnesses.
And I think, you know, rightfully so. Like you said, what I thought, you know, why is it so quiet? Why is it so quiet? And I just immediately thought about, like, you know, the witch hunts and trials where people were burned at the stakes for this type of work. And even thinking about the animals and the trees, like, you know, we're cutting them down, we're killing the animals. Like, you know, that's why it's quiet.
Yeah, it's like a consumer consciousness toward the nature frequency. However, we rely on nature consciousness. We rely on that frequency to exist at all. So I think there's going to be a shift happening soon.
Well, that was a great question. Thank you for sharing that. That was great. So next question about Amanda. So what do you think? Well, yeah. What have you learned from being in this field, in this space, that's something you think moms just getting into this should know?
The microdosing healing space. I think that your starting dose should be lower than you think. That can go against a lot of current current messaging and thinking that. And you are not just replacing you're not just replacing your pharmaceutical medications with a different pill that you take every day or every third day or 4 days on and 3 days off. You're not just replacing it. It's not a lateral move. You are engaging in a completely different pathway toward healing. And in that pathway, the work looks different. And that is why I've created this meta-conscious healing, to tap into some of that deeper work, to make it accessible for especially moms to be able to utilize and practice in tangible ways. Because without the work, you will probably see some benefit. I mean, there's thousands of people out there seeing all sorts of benefits, and they're doing all sorts of different kinds of work or no work at all. However, if you want really to create something that nurtures you, instills a sense of confidence and empowerment and authentic self-expression, if you want to connect with this truth of who you are and run your life from that centered, anchored space, then you need to do a different type of work with the microdosing. It's not going to do it all on its own.
Mm-hmm. So, next question. This is a good one. So, what's the most difficult part of being a microdosing mom?
Well, when I was first starting, I think there were a couple things. It was finding safe access was a huge struggle to the medicine, and also having community, having people to talk to about it. It can feel really isolating, and not knowing where to go to get good information, going down all these rabbit holes, it can feel really overwhelming. So I remember feeling overwhelmed and kind of alone in the space when I was just getting started, which is why I created the Facebook group and why we are doing the mentorship, really to create something that supports moms in both of those areas: safe access and quality healing content and community. So yeah, I think the hardest thing is the community piece. And then also, as far as from a current standpoint, there is still a lot of judgment around there. I think that the tide is shifting, but there's still a lot of there's a lack of understanding about what it actually means to microdose, and people have judgments or think that moms are just, tripping all day long with their kids, and that's not at all what microdosing is. And so with that misunderstanding and miscommunication, I think there's a lot of fear. So kind of being in a space of visibility is wonderful in order to be part of the normalization. And I am seeing it, microdosing is being talked about in all sorts of other spaces as a really healthy, great tool. So that's good. However, there's still a lot of judgment, and it can create a sense of uncertainty at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the community is huge. Mm-hmm. I say connection is the new currency. So yeah, community is huge.
Yeah. And we are creating a really good and supportive and non-judgmental community, both in the Facebook group and, in the mentorship, for sure. It's so needed.
There's people on, SSRIs that were feeling a certain type of way that, maybe they didn't want to be judged. And there's people that were doing XYZ. And I told them it was a safe space, and they were able to come through and, share. And, it was validated, and confirmed what I was saying, that you can come and as you are, you can, be drinking every day. You can be an alcoholic. So yeah, just the space, what you're creating, what we're creating. It's really beautiful. So this next question, I have it written down here, but I was thinking about adding to it. But the question is, how do you define success in your field? But then I also thought, how do you define success for your clients? And maybe that's connected. But how do you define success in your field? Maybe that's how it relates to like the business or you as the coach. But how do you define success in your field? And then how do you define success for your students, your clients?
Yeah, I think success in that kind of answers both questions simultaneously, because it's really the same answer. Success is in connection, quality connections that fill you. It's in fulfillment, feeling like you're living your life's purpose and that what you do matters, feeling like you're connecting with passion, like you're living your life from a space of passion, feeling resilient, like you're anchored into this universal sense of authentic self. And that's where you are expressing from. That's where you are connecting from. It's, success. Certainly everybody might define from a client perspective. Everyone's going to have their own criteria for kind of measuring the results of their success. One of the things I do in my coaching is we always outline the conversation with very clear goals and ways to measure those goals. And so certainly there are metrics that can be applied to success, but those metrics are always defined, created, modified, transformed by the client themselves. And really, my belief is that the external indicators are really a reflection of what's going on inside. Are you happy? Are you joyful? Do you feel passionate? Are you living in a world of synchronicity and awe and wonder and beauty? Are you feeling unburdened? Are you feeling free from emotional roller coaster when your system gets taken over and you're activated by a trigger? Are you feeling like you've been lifted out of that and into a more universally connected space? So it's abundance, it's joy, it's passion, it's contentment, fulfillment, all of those very spiritual principles that then trickle down and manifest in various ways in our thoughts, emotions, actions, and of course our material surroundings.
All right, so we're wrapping things up. I have a few more questions here.
Okay.
And also, if anyone's watching, if you have a question that you would like answered that wasn't asked on this, if you're in our Facebook group, you can just type it in the comments, and then we'll get back to you. And I'm sure Amanda would be happy to answer your question. So if you have a question, put it in the comments. So okay. What do you wish your younger self knew about microdosing?
Gosh, I wish I knew about it after having kids, honestly. Like, I went through a wild ride with my hormones, and I think microdosing could have really helped me in that space, just like chill out. And then as far as being much younger, my goodness. I mean, I'll never know, but maybe had I switched to microdosing sooner, maybe I would have had fewer hospitalizations. Maybe I would have had fewer such dark lows. I don't know. But I think that expanding into the spiritual space would have been transformative in an experiential way. Like, I was studying this stuff, I was cognitively processing it, but being able to have access to the experience of healing, the experience of surrender, to have an experiential reference point for these key universal points could have been game changing for sure. But yeah, I think it would have just been a very deep and rich, and possibly could have changed the trajectory of my ups and downs throughout my 20s and even my 30s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So these last couple of questions, I'm going to try to do it in like 5 minutes for all the listeners. We're right at the hour mark. But just a few more questions, and then we're going to get into Amanda's 2 truths and a untruth. What is it? Untruth?
Lie?
I don't like saying the L word, you know. So yeah, this one's good. So what's the biggest challenge the industry is facing today from your perspective, and then, you know, maybe 10 years from now? Like, what's the biggest challenge you think the industry, this space faces?
Yeah, I think there is a fine line between what's happening above board and what is staying still kind of below the line in legality. And as more and more states, cities, towns legalize psilocybin or other psychedelics for therapeutic means, I think that balancing cost effectiveness with bureaucracy is going to be a huge challenge. I know there's a lot of stuff happening in, say, Oregon, where they have a psychedelic therapeutic space. However, it's just not affordable. So I think as we legalize, as more and more states begin to legalize this pathway, we need to be very careful and conscious about how we're doing it. And as more and more practitioners come into the space, I think harm reduction is a huge thing. And that has been a central focus for me, harm reduction, making sure that safety comes first. I want everybody to be safe. And so messaging that is huge. So I know there's some news story, you know, things will come out about mushrooms or this, that, or the other thing. And it can really hurt the movement if people aren't using it or engaging with it or supporting it in a safe way. So I think balancing the growth and the development of the infrastructure along with safety and harm reduction measures is going to be very interesting and challenging over the next 5-10 years as the movement grows, which inevitably it will, because it works. Mm-hmm. So of course it's going to grow.
And that's why I like our approach with things, the slower approach, and not rushing into things. I say this all the time, but for me and the clients that we work with, this is a lifelong lifestyle change. And so I have moms message me, most recently, someone that was well respected, had a lot of followers. This mom actually really trusted this person, and I think that, you know, everything would have been fine. But this other coach was instructing this mom to take a much higher dose than I would recommend someone starting at. And, you know, I went and I told this mom, I said, if it was me, I would tell you 1 gram. That would be where, you know, where I would start. And I think, you know, the other coach was like, hey, you need to go deep. You need to do like 3 or 4 grams, you know, and I think she might've said 4. And that's just part of the safety, you know, like, I don't know. I've been doing this for a long, long time. Even a lot of the moms that we work with that want to move up in dose too soon. It's a very fine line. And just trust me that, like, you know, we have time, you know, this is a life lifelong lifestyle change. You know, we have many, many years. So, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. And even if and that's not to say that you'll be microdosing forever. Everyone's journey will be different, but the practices that you bring in, the mindsets that you bring in, that is the lifelong practice.
Yeah. So one of the last ones, I'm excited to ask this one. So how do you see yourself investing in yourself, in your practice as it relates to your knowledge and your relationship with these sacred plants and with plant medicine? So, you know, any travel plans, any coaching, you going to any ceremonies coming up possibly?
Yeah, I don't have any ceremonies planned just yet. I am hosting a couple of things that one is not plant-based centric, the other one is. So those are coming up this summer. As far as my own growth and development, that's a really good question because typically my biggest investment is time, and that is in the work I do outside. My bike rides, my hikes here in the mountains outside of Phoenix. However, it's summer here in Phoenix, and that's kind of our winter, and it is too hot to be outside. I think it's like 115 out there today, and so I have been feeling a little bit like I just have not been able to engage in my own healing practice as much as I normally would, especially with the kids home all day, every day. So I do need to rethink and look at what practices I can bring in to accommodate for the heat. And, that being said, coaching is always something that has been helpful for me, particularly other energy consciousness coaches, because that is a framework that I've seen so much growth in myself, and really working with individuals that are trained and really well versed in the 7 levels of energy and core energy platform supports the biggest shift in me in raising my own consciousness. And then, as far as future ceremonies, for sure, that's on the radar. I haven't felt called or guided.
Kentucky, y'all. She's coming to Kentucky. I'm trying to get her here, and we're going to Brazil. I'm going to shout it for her.
There is nothing on the calendar yet, but absolutely, that is on the radar. That would be amazing. And so I'm open, and I am just going to keep pursuing what I feel called to pursue. And if there's resistance or blocks, I take a meta-conscious approach. I look at what's happening and choose ultimately what aligns with my with my highest self, with my best interest in promoting my core values, between my family and between you and between the engaging in these spiritual spaces, these highly spiritual ceremonial spaces, which are absolutely magical.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, there's no pressure. I kind of like just playing and teasing with you, because one day it'll happen when it's meant to be. But for the listeners, I did send Amanda a package. It's called Hape. And so I'm excited to see, that possibly being something that you work with, and, you can do it indoors. And so if it's hot outside, it's perfect for at night. You can do it indoors, you can do it outside too, but that's a medicine that can help, deepen our connection to the space. So,
I'm looking forward to that.
All right. So these last questions are more around just like, where can, listeners learn more about you, like your social media, the course that we launched, where can they sign up for that and purchase, what you have to offer?
So a couple places. My website, which is www.ahamo.com, which is ahmo.com, stands for Aha Moments. So ahamo.com, that is where you can learn more about me. And on my website, there is a page for the Sacred Microdose, which is the container for our program. And that is where the course, my course on metaconscious healing, the foundations course, is housed. And I'm also writing lots of other curriculum to support growth on varying levels. But my signature course is launched in that platform. So you can go there to the Sacred Microdose. You can find us on Facebook in the Sacred, what is our group called? Even I'm blanking. The Microdosing for Moms Seeking Safe and Sacred Microdosing Mentorship. And I say that whole thing because there is another group that's just called Microdosing Moms. That is not us. I don't know what they do in there. So you can find us there. And then also on Instagram, we're launching a couple of channels there. I did just launch a channel on YouTube called Flute Mama. And I'll be doing meditations on there. I'll be doing live streams of my flute. And so I am currently just trying to get to 50 subscribers so I can do live streams. And when I get to that point, I want to do interactive healing. So if you are feeling like you're struggling with something, then you can come in there and I can channel for you through the flute and do some personalized healing for free, just in the live stream. And then also, my meditations, metaconscious healing, and there will be information on that channel, how to get to the course and microdosing moms and all that good stuff.
Awesome. So the last question, I promise. What is next for you? What, going into, you don't have to go into a year from now, but sometimes that helps. But maybe it doesn't even have to be a year from now. Like, what is next for you? I guess I try to control things, like all right, it's a year from now, or, it could be tomorrow, right? It could be today. What's next for you? So I'm going to just leave it open. What is next for Amanda?
What is next? Gosh. I mean, I am really breathing a lot of air into the Microdosing Moms mentorship because I believe in it and I believe in the transformative power of it. So I'm spending a lot of time there. I'm also working on creating a lot of guided meditations and visualizations around this metaconscious healing paradigm and all the different aspects of that. So I'm creating all of that, which will will be either released holistically or as individual tracks. But I'll be recording that and putting it either on the Flute Mama YouTube channel, on our Microdosing Moms Instagram, or various places. And then, just continuing to really flesh out this whole healing paradigm, because someday it's going to be a book.
Yep. I'm excited. I'm excited for the meditations and the channel and the short flutes and yeah. All right. So we've waited an hour, Amanda. We've just been holding on. What?
Anyone's still listening.
What? Who is the real Amanda? Will the real Amanda please stand up?
So I had said, what did I say? My original hair color is brown, the recording in a professional studio, and then living in a camper with my family. So the lie is that my original hair color is brown.
Whoa. Oh my gosh. Now we want to know. Are you going to tell us what your original hair color is?
Well, it's blonde. It's a darker blonde than this, but it's blonde. So anyway, we travel in a camper. Usually during the summer, we're gone. So, and I almost said this earlier, but then I would have messed up I would have revealed one of the truths. But last summer we were traveling in cooler climates, so I could still do my healing practice. I could still get outside and hike and bike ride and do all the things because we were in higher elevation and it was much cooler. This summer, though, our camper's in the shop. Sad face, and so we're home.
Well, that's all I have. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else. You're probably exhausted for all these questions that I'm throwing at you. But yeah, thank you all for watching. This was really fun for me. I learned a lot as well. And yeah, we're going to do it again next week, right?
Yep, we will see you guys next week.